Ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement to make. I have a massive package. And here it is, a body kit for my BMW E82 135i. And I can hear some of you shouting at me already. I know, I still have some mechanical work to do on the car, but I'm in the process of sorting it, the bits are on the way, but I've got to keep some videos coming out for you guys, so this is what we're doing this time. So now I've got that all cleared up, I'm going to run you through exactly what I've got here. So all across my garden at the moment, I have spread out a genuine replica BMW 1M widebody kit. And that includes, firstly, a new front bumper, a new rear bumper, a new bonnet, or if you're a Yank, a hood, a pair of wider front arches, a slightly more sexy spoiler, a pair of different side skirts, and finally a pair of wider rear arches. These are going to be the hardest bit to fit, but we'll come back to this later. So you may remember from the video where I fitted the Rocket Bunny kit to my Nissan 350Z, there's a link in the top right hand corner right now, but there was a lot of cutting to do to that bodywork in order to get that Rocket Bunny kit on, where I'm hoping this kit is going to be slightly different. And the reason being for that is most of this is complete replacement panels apart from those rear arches, so fingers crossed it should be a bit of an easier kit to fit. But there is no point procrastinating, we may as well get straight on with it and try and turn my car into a BMW 1M. But before we do that, there is one quick job that we need to do, and that is sorting out the cracked windscreen. And there was only one man for the job. Archie from AGM Windscreens came around and sorted us out with a new screen and new windscreen surround too, so shouts out to him. So a massive shout out to Archie at AGM Windscreens. I'm going to leave his links in the description. Make sure you go check him out if you're local to Leicester and you need some windscreen work doing. But anyway, let's get on with this body kit. So here's my thinking. The whole front end needs to be replaced, which means the arches need to come off, which means to be able to do that, we've got to get the side skirts off. So I think that is where we start. We get the front end apart and then we come to the back end later. So side skirts off, that's the first job. Let's go. So like I said in the intro, we will definitely be getting on with some of the mechanical fixes soon. I'm just waiting for some parts to get here, so seeing as I've got this body kit lying around, I thought I'd get this video sorted for you guys and get the modification side of this project started. So taking the side skirts off was actually a complete doddle. I think there was about 10 T30 bits on the underside of the car, and then underneath the trim in the door shut there was just a bunch of pop rivet clips, and then once all those are out, the side skirt should just unclip from the car. So with one side off, it was just time to get the other side off, and again, exactly the same process. There was nothing different on this side. Super easy little thing to do. Well, they were surprisingly easy. Next up, let's go for the front bumper. So the first thing to come off was the 4 T30s at the top underneath the bonnet, and then off with the wheels. The reason I've done that is because I want to take the arch lining off in order to be able to give myself best access for when it comes to refitting the new wings and the bumper, and then we can get it bolted in as best as possible. Then there was just a bunch of 8mm on the underside of the car which attached the bumper to the under tray. Now some of mine were rounded and rusty and just generally clapped, so the angle grinder came out just to sort the odd one out. By the way, if you guys don't follow me on Instagram, make sure you do, because I want to take some suggestions off you guys of what to do with this car next and things like colour, and I feel like that's the best way of doing it, so make sure you go and give me a follow. So once that was done, it was time to take off the washer jet covers. Again, you can just pull these out and then unclip the covers from the nozzle itself. With all the bolts undone in the wheel arch line, it should just unclip, and if it is a little bit tight, just pop in a trim removal tool in there just to help wiggle its way out of the clips. Definitely helped. And then finally unplugging the parking sensors and the front bumper was off. Next up is the wings. Again, there was a bunch of 10mm on the top underneath the bonnet. Again, super easy to get to. Then there was 2 in the wheel arch area, one right at the back by the door, and then one kind of where it attaches to the side skirt.
No, no, no. Yes, I want you to be here for me. Of course, I want you to be here. Don't disappear. Sometimes I need you strong for me. Sometimes I need you strong.
So once those were out, there was 3 bolts left holding on the wing to the car, and 2 of those were in the door shut. The way to get to these is to have the door kind of half open on the first step where it kind of holds itself out, if that makes any sense. And then also there was one in the wheel arch which I missed as well. And I don't know if this is the professional way to do it, but balancing it with your head and just ramming your 10mm in there seemed to be the way that I've found easiest to do it. And then finally, with a bit of a jiggle to get the wing off one clip, it was free. So that was not as bad as what I was expecting. That's the full front end stripped down, apart from the bonnet. It's the 2-man job. I'm just going to wait for someone else to pop round to give me a hand with that. But it all came apart pretty easy, to be honest with you. But I suppose it's always easier taking it apart because you're not so worried about damaging it as getting it back together. The only thing that was a little bit tricky on the driver's side, there is the washer fluid bottle, which you have to kind of manhandle a bit out of the way to access some of the bolts in the wing. But yeah, apart from that, pretty easy. So I've now got the new 1M wing next to the old standard wings, just so you can see the difference really. And the first thing I noticed that I wasn't aware of is that it definitely takes a different indicator. I think this will be the one off the E82 M3. But secondly, the main difference, you can see how much extra flare this has got on the arch compared to that one. It's a lot more subtle than the previous body kit I did in the 350Z, but it's definitely going to be noticeable. So let's see how this fits. So now it was time to start fitting up the new wings, and I can say for certain I love the way these wings are. It's so much more subtle than the last wide body kit we did, but also looks nice and aggressive too. So let me know in the comment section what you think of this kit. Luckily, all of the holes in this wing came pre-drilled, which is an absolute lifesaver, so it was just a case of bolting it on, and honestly, it couldn't have got any easier. It just fell into place. Again, the driver's side is the slightly trickier side out of the two. It still wasn't difficult. You've just got to get the wing on around the washer fluid bottle and then tighten the bottle in as well as the wing. So once the washer fluid bottle was bolted in, I could start pushing back all of the lines into place so they're not going to get in the way, and then start putting the rest of the bolts in the wing. And then it was time to turn our attention onto the front bumper. So that was all just a little bit too easy. I know it's just about to get a lot more complicated. So next up is the bumpers, or well, the front bumper should I say, and this is where I think I'm going to struggle a little bit more because there's a few things I need to do to make this one look right on the car. The first thing is put the parking sensors in from the old bumper into the new one. So that means drilling holes in my brand new bumper. Sick, can't wait. Also as well, the grills, I'm not going to do these yet, but there is no clips or anything to hold the grills onto this bumper, so I'm going to have to make something rather than be able to buy a part and fit that nice and easily. So that's a little bit of a pain. And also the washer jet holes look a bit different on this one to what they do on this one, so hopefully the standard ones work without any messing. That would be very nice, but I feel like this is going to be the hardest part. So I think the first bit we wanted to tackle was the parking sensors. So with my mate Slack, we decided to put tape over the old bumper, trace out where the parking sensors were, and then transfer this to the new bumper and start drilling some holes. I was not looking forward to this one bit. Same there, they're just slightly above the dot. Yeah? Yep.
I can only applaud, that was spot on.
So after we'd celebrated great success, it was time to drill the rest of the holes and then start using a step drill to get the holes big enough to fit in the parking sensors. In order to make sure that we didn't do the holes too big with the step drill, we marked on the drill bit with tape exactly where we needed to go to make sure the parking sensor holes were just the right size to make sure they're a nice snug fit. So once we got the holes drilled, it was time to take the parking sensor holders off the old bumper and transfer those to the new ones. These are just stuck onto the back of the old bumper, so we decided to heat these up to loosen off some of the glue and then attack them with a screwdriver to get them off the bumper. To line these up on the bumper, I used some exquisite finger action and stuck them on from the back, and using my finger to kind of help get it into place so the parking sensor is going to fit right when we put them back in. Right, so the parking sensors are on the new front bumper and we're waiting for those to dry, but while that's doing that, we're going to take the bonnet off and fit the new bonnet, and then hopefully by the time that's done, the new bumper is ready to go on the car, and that's the front end done.
Gold leaves, gold strings, gold leaves.
So the first job on the bonnet was getting the windscreen washer jets off. There is an array of wires and pipes and clips which you've got to remove in order to get these off, but again, once they're unclipped from the bonnet, you can undo the electrical connectors, remove the pipes, and you're good to go. Next up, out come the clips for the gas struts on the bonnet which hold it up, and then the bonnet release catch comes off too. This was just held on with two T30s and it came straight off, nice and easy. And this is where precision teamwork is a must. You need to kind of hold the bonnet up whilst undoing some of the bolts in order to prop the bonnet in place so it doesn't drop onto the windscreen or anywhere else you don't want to drop it to, particularly onto your head. So with all of the bolts out, we can just slide the bonnet off the hinges and get it removed from the car. And then it was time to start lining up our new, more aggressive bonnet, and this one looks quite cool because it's got a bulge kind of in the middle of it and also space for the M3 style bonnet vents too. So luckily all of the nut holes and everything were already in here, so we can just bolt this straight up. There was some bits which we had to transfer from the old bonnet to the new one, like the rubbers and also the little nubs which hold on the gas struts which hold the bonnet open, but in regards to bolting it up, it just went straight on. So I now wanted to tackle the side skirts while we were waiting for the glue to dry on the parking sensor holes for the front bumper. So we had to transfer this bracket from the old wing to the new one, and then we could start clipping up the new side skirt.
Oh, it looks so close when I close my eyes.
This side skirt was pretty much a perfect fit, so we had about those 10 T30s on the bottom to bolt in and 5 clips on the top underneath that door shut trim, and it was back in place.
2 years in a couple of days. I just wave my hand to the world outside like it's all okay. I can't believe what my eyes have seen. I just woke up from a broken dream. Who can stop my hands from shaking? I need you to take them, and I don't wanna wait all night. I'm coming alive and my senses are a little amazed.
So seeing as that took a grand total of about 5 minutes, it was time to turn our attention to removing the rear bumper while we were still waiting for that glue to dry. So we managed to snap about all of the bolts on the underside of the bumper and get the ones out the wheel arches, and then unclip the rear bumper from the car.
Will you sit with me?
I don't know if it was essential or not to take out the rear lights to get the rear bumper off, but I think it definitely made it easier. But once that was off, it was time to do what we did in the front bumper to the new back bumper and copy over those parking sensor holes.
And I can't keep avoiding the cure. It feels like my heart's gonna die if I don't run out this door. I can't believe what my eyes have seen. I just woke up in a broken dream.
So after a good massacring with the drill, the new holes were in the rear bumper, and we could start gluing in those parking sensor holders too. And again, we're going to have to wait a little while for this to dry.
Are a little demented. I saw the light.
So time for a progress update. I've left this overnight now and our parking sensors are now solid enough, and yeah, I think they'll be fine, So they're in place and the rear bumper is ready to go on. The front bumper is in the same situation, so these didn't stick so well at first, but again managed to stick these better, leave them overnight. So the front bumper is now ready to go on, and it's been quite a lot of work getting these ready. As it is also going to be quite a lot of work, I think, to get the rear arches on and get those looking right, but it's not been a 2-minute job. But at the same time, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the hardest kit, but there is some problems with the bonnet, which I'll show you quickly. So although I've got the gas struts on, got the bonnet bolted on, got the release latch on and the other bits, but there is still one part of it which doesn't fit. And it's probably the most important part. This goes just here. And what that should do is essentially keep the bonnet locked in place when it's pushed down. And as you can see, the hole that they've provided just isn't big enough to fit that. It does fit in this hole, but that's definitely not right because it doesn't line up with the latch, and also there's a metal plate behind which I definitely need to drill through in order to allow this to go far enough in to let the bonnet sit right. So that definitely needs a bit of playing with, but yeah, it's quite a lot of faff. And I'm sure some of you are thinking, why are you putting this much effort into turning this car into, or to look like, a BMW 1M? Why don't you go out and buy one in the first place? And there's two reasons behind that, really. Number one, I cannot afford a BMW 1M. They're about 50 grand as a starting price. I've seen one the other day with very low mileage for £80,000. This car cost me £7,000 or £6,900 actually, so there's a fair price difference between the two, considering they've got the same engine and gonna look the same-ish. And also, secondly, it would be sacrilege to then go and buy such a rare car like one of those and then start modifying it, and that's kind of what I like to do. So to be able to do that, it makes a lot more sense to get the cheaper version and then ruin that in my own special way, and you know, put different wheels on it and lower it and do all these things that you wouldn't necessarily do to a car which is going to be a guaranteed future classic. And hopefully you guys agree with that. I'm sure some of you are going to think that I've ruined this car, because you always do, but some of you guys will also definitely love it. So hopefully you guys are on board. Hopefully you guys can see the finished product too, and hopefully I can convince you guys to subscribe to the channel, like the video, because that's all for this time. We'll get it finished in the next video, so I'll catch you then.